in 2011, I had an opportunity to be part of a student exchange program in Canada.
Nice.
And I think it was after Canada where I think the world of possibilities was available
Opened
for
up.
me. Yeah, and I was able to consider, perhaps I could go somewhere to study. So I think I will acknowledge that Canada played a very crucial role in terms of how my perspective was and what I could see as a world of things that I can do.
Hey guys, welcome back to yet another episode of Suits and Stories. I'm super excited today for you to hear from our guest, Mahlatse Ramoroka, who is an international development practitioner. And guys, get this, has only had an international corporate experience. So I'm super excited for you guys to hear from her today, where she's going to be sharing her experiences and so much more. Mahlatse, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, bohlale, and thank you for having me today.
Such a pleasure, such a pleasure. So I always like to start off these conversations with a little bit of an icebreaker, just a little bit, right?
I don't know if I should be nervous, but okay.
So if you were to tell me what your one hobby or interest is outside of corporate that people would actually be quite shocked about or would not expect of you, what do you think that would be?
I'm not sure about shocked,
Yeah.
but interestingly, I enjoy running. But I think a community of the people close to me know that.
Okay.
I started running about 3 years ago, and it's become the one thing in terms of exercise because I never know what to do at the gym.
So you're one of those people that's like,
and I'm like, am I supposed to be lifting something? Am I supposed to be following someone? So I enjoy running.
Yeah?
I really enjoy running.
what is it about running? Is it just like this solitude, or do you run on your own, or do you run with a group of people?
No,
What
I
do you
run
prefer?
on my own.
Okay.
I think I enjoy the solitude.
Yeah.
I think I've always also had a soft spot for solitude and
Yeah.
appreciation for just being able to be on my own,
Yes.
so to say, gather my thoughts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think it might be the solitude more.
Okay. I love that. I
Yeah,
love that. No, great to hear that. I also used to be someone that ran quite a bit, but I'm a group person. Like I think even when I get to the gym, I'm like, which class can I do? Because like to do things on my own is like.
Not the easiest, I guess.
Not the easiest thing. I like being pushed by doing stuff with others. I feel like it just gives me that like you have to let's keep up. So completely resonate with the running part as well. So Mahlatse, I'm so excited to chat to you today, and I think you've got quite a unique story. I know we've spent some time chatting about you, your background, and your story. But I think one of the key things that I wanted us to just dive into, right, is how did it come about that you have an international corporate kind of experience when you're born and raised in SA? Like, how did that whole journey come about in terms of your background and how you ended up having a career in New York?
Okay. Yes, I was born in South Africa. I was born and raised Koshio, Zone 4 to be particular.
Zone 4 to be particular.
And spent 12 years there until I went to university. I went to the University of Pretoria to do my undergraduate degree.
Okay, so you went to Tux.
And then while doing my honors, that's when the conversation or the opportunity about going to study abroad came about. And this was towards the end of my honors, probably around October, November. And then that started kind of unfolding from then on. And I left to New York in August 2017 to study. And then
So whilst you were studying, like in your honors year? Or
I finished
you finished
my
your honors, okay.
Yeah. I finished my honors.
Yes.
But it was towards the end of it where I started preparing. Because
Okay.
there's exams to be written.
Yes.
And
yes.
So I finished my honors 2016. So 2017, I did register, by the way, for a master's at the University of Pretoria.
Okay.
Because it was like...
That was always the plan.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
always a plan, so to say.
Yeah.
So I did register for a master's, which I took up 1 or 2 modules that first semester, also to keep busy because the academic year in the US only starts in the fall, was August.
Okay, yes.
So from first semester, I was registered and I was doing a master's, and then, I finished that. And then August 2017, I left to go to New York. That was school. And then from school, one thing led to another. All of a sudden, I was working. I mean, I started with internships, and then I had a job, and then one visa to another, and it's 2014.
So tell me, how do you from end of like doing your honors, you obviously had to have applied for an opportunity to do your master's internationally as well,
Oh yeah,
right?
so the applying happened later. So it's like you apply, yes, but also I wouldn't say that the two are not related in terms of the application and the examination process.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's like you're being considered for a school, yes, but also you need to qualify to be admitted into the school,
Right.
by virtue of writing the exams.
Right.
But I think I'd always envied to study abroad because, and where did that come from? I think I had a light bulb moment for me, 2011.
Yeah.
In 2011, I had an opportunity to be part of a student exchange program in Canada.
Nice.
And I think it was after Canada where I think the world of possibilities was available
Opened
for
up.
me. And I was able to consider, perhaps I could go somewhere to study. So I think I will acknowledge that Canada played a very crucial role in terms of how my perspective was and what I could see as a world of things that I can do.
And how long was your exchange program when you were there?
It was a couple of weeks, I think just under a month.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But in that, you say a light bulb moment, right?
Yeah.
Like your world was all of a sudden like what, bigger than just Seshego
Yeah.
and UP and
Yes, it definitely was, to be honest with you. I think that gave me an opportunity to see things outside of the place I came from and the people I was exposed to. So I think it really played a crucial role, if I must be honest.
Was it not daunting to you to move away from home, move away from a comfort zone, move away from everything that you know to decide that you are going to be one man overseas and like just wing it, like just do your thing?
It was very scary, but
Yeah.
I was scared, but in the same vein, I was excited.
Yeah.
But if there's one thing I think that journey has taught me is really the importance of doing it afraid. I don't think there's ever a time I felt like, I'm ready, let's pack and go. Or, I'm ready, let me consider. No. I think there's more so, I'd like to do that, but equally so, I'm very aware of how unsure or just how scared I am of, is this going to work out or not? Am I going to do well or not? I think that the unknown is always there.
Yeah.
So, you know what? Take the risk. Do it afraid.
I love that. I love that.
There's never been ready.
I love that, because I think a lot of times as people, when we think about our life journeys, our careers, being in a comfort zone is something that can sometimes actually be a hindrance, right? Being comfortable is something that can be a hindrance because it doesn't allow for you to face or at least explore other aspects of yourself that you may not have to explore if you weren't put in a position where you're uncomfortable.
That's true.
Right?
That's true.
So I totally resonate, I think, with your statement just around to do stuff afraid, because you learn so much about yourself. And I'm very interested about the journey that you had there and what you learned about yourself throughout your career journey, but also more importantly, where mentorship plays a role. Who's that person that you kind of lean on?
It's interesting you ask this because this year, I'm turning 30, by the way, and it's a crown birthday. I turned 30 on the 30th of May. And I've been sitting a lot in reflection in terms of what am I supposed to be celebrating? And I've been feeling a strong tugging actually to take the time to acknowledge and appreciate all the people who've played a role in my journey. I don't want to say a person because it's really been a community of people. And it's been so important for me to really be able to go back to the people, to the places. And I'm not saying go back because I don't have a relationship with those people, but to kind of more intentionally have that conversation about how I truly appreciate the role they've played, especially in the past 12 years. And I'm dating this really in the time frame of from Canada to at least last year, so to say. And I mean, even from Canada, I was hosted by 2 families when I stayed there.
Right.
And I've kept a good relationship with those families. And so in every part or in every segment of this journey, there's always been people who've journeyed with me. And that is why I say a community.
Yeah.
My first official, if I could say, opportunity to say, where I asked somebody or approached somebody to say, would you be my mentor? Was actually my first year.
Okay.
First
of
year
studying
tax.
or
No,
okay,
first year
of studying.
tax.
Yes.
Of studying, yes.
Oh, that's interesting.
It was my first year of tax, and I was part of a church community where there was a conversation about getting mentors, this and this. And I was like, okay, I'd like to get somebody.
Yeah.
And I guess by really a divine connection, I met a lady who has truly journeyed with me since then.
Wow.
And has continued to play such a significant role in my life. And after I met her, the truth is I've been able also to benefit from her networks as a result of our relationship.
Okay.
And then you move from Tuks, even in going to New York and studying, there's really been a community. I've really also been blessed enough to have a community of professors who've also journeyed with me into deciding or helping me decide in what to choose or what not to choose academically.
Yes.
Even in the workspace, there's been a community of women who've really also poured into my journey. So it's really been a community. Some of the things I've really learned have come from those people. And I say mentorship has played a significant role because I was stepping into a space that I didn't really have a close enough template of what I was doing.
Yes.
I don't come from a diplomatic family.
Yes.
I'm just a kid from Seshego, and there's no one in my family who's done anything close to what I've done. So I've really relied on the community of mentors that I've had to navigate and to really figure out certain things and understand them. And my family has also played a very significant role in in mentoring me in their own way, right?
Yeah.
I come from a family that's relatively big on education. Like, we were consistently, and even to date, I am continued to be asked, and that PhD, ma'am.
The PhD. What's next?
Are you registering? I've really been blessed enough to. So as much as I sometimes laugh it off, like, can I have a break? But I've constantly been admonished to really be intentional about developing myself, investing in a career, investing in education, and really investing in myself. And I'm truly, truly grateful for that.
Would you say that's something that you want for yourself? Or is it something that you feel you're doing because
it's encouraged?
It's encouraged, not an expectation, encouraged. I know how family can be. That's what I'm asking.
No, to be honest with you, I think there was an element of encouragement, but equally so it was met with my own interest. Interest in what I wanted to do and interest in having taken it upon myself that this is a journey I'd like to pursue, or this is a career I'd like to pursue. So I think it's been both. And to be honest with you, in terms of my family, I wouldn't necessarily even say that it was I never in any particular felt that it was kind of forced, that they were really forcing it, because there'd always been room where there was conversation around what would you like to do and why. And I think that interest in so that it's a you decision. It wasn't necessarily a them decision. So I wouldn't necessarily say it was forced, to be honest with you. And I think more than anything, the encouragement came sometimes not even in things that were said. It was really in how people led their lives.
Yes.
That you were able to see and have that encouragement kind of received, because you are able to consistently track behavior and observe the outcomes that come from that.
Yes.
So I wouldn't say forced.
So through encouragement, but also through your self-observation of people that have gone that route and those that haven't.
And what that has done.
What that has done for them.
Definitely.
Now that we're on the topic of education, can you maybe just tell the listeners a little bit about what you studied? Why you studied it and how that's led to the career that you have now.
Okay. I did my undergraduate in political science, majoring in politics, economics, and statistics.
Yeah.
And then my honors was in politics and international relations. I actually chose that because I was trying to go for what was an IPE, international political economy kind of structure.
Okay.
Yeah. And at the time, interestingly, when I did my undergrad, or was a first year, the degree PPE wasn't being offered at University of Pretoria. And that is what I had intended to do, this politics, philosophy, and economics. Yeah. So I think the choice in ultimately having politics, economics, and statistics came from trying to create what was the closest thing to a PPE.
That. Yeah.
So that's what I did undergrad, and then I did my master's in international political economy and development. And that is how I ended up in the development space, in the diplomatic space to date.
And loving it?
Oh, I'm loving it. And also sometimes I'm uncomfortable.
Nah.
Like, so it's really the best of both worlds, as they say.
Yeah. Very interesting. I think one of the key things that is important for us to unpack sometimes when it comes to corporate careers, right? Because I think, when young people look at people in high positions and, they aspire to become what it is that they see from the outside without really actually understanding what it took to get there, right? The level of grit and resilience and all of those types of things. And, one thing I wanted to ask you about in particular is really just about, if you were to reflect back on your career, what you feel are some of the core values that you have that have allowed you to make the necessary decisions that you have made in your career to get to where you are now?
It takes a lot of grit. I'm not even going to lie about that. I think for me, my journey in New York, if there's one thing that it's taught me, is really the importance of having grit and resilience. I think school, especially for me, was that learning in a more severe way, right? And I think even when I started working, it made me even more realize the importance, for example, of humanity and just being able to relate to people with respect, with consideration, not because of the positions necessarily that they hold, but just because they're human, and to value people for that. Because the workspace can be so shrewd, man, in the way people want to get promotions, for example, by all means necessary.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And being able to have that level of humanity helps to say, there's nothing I'm pursuing by all means necessary. Please believe me.
Yeah.
There's absolutely nothing that I'm in the interest of pursuing at all means necessary or at all costs. No.
Interesting.
Because that in itself would really be a sacrifice of my values and belief in kindness, in respect, in being able to appreciate other people just for the fact that they're human, not because of anything else. So I think I've constantly have had to remind myself of that regardless of what's happening around me, regardless of how there might be what looks, at least to me, like an interest to step up the ladder, and regardless of who you're stepping on, I'm not participating in that.
Sure.
I refuse to be a part of that because I still need to hold true to the values of humanity, kindness, and just integrity. Because if there's one thing that history really never forgives us for, it's injustice.
What I love about what you said is there's nothing you're willing to do by all means at all costs. That is not how I decide or how I plan to lead my life, right? And one thing that's beautiful about what you said is that it's just that realization of you going into any environment, any corporate space, you are there first as you, with all of your values, with everything that you bring, with all the things that you hold dear, right? Yes, you may see people all around you doing all sorts of things, but it doesn't mean lose yourself in the process, jump on the bandwagon and do what everyone else is doing, right? There's a strength in being able to draw a line for yourself, irrespective of what that looks like to the outside world.
Yeah.
Is there one thing that you could share with us that maybe stands out and is significant in your memory around where you really needed grit?
I never thought I'd get through grad school.
Grad school?
Yeah, I mean, my master's journey.
In New York?
Yeah.
Why?
I think there was a time, especially in the first semester, so it was a big adjustment. It was very challenging for me. And I wasn't sure whether I had what it needed for me to really stick it out.
Why?
Because it was challenging in various ways. For example, just even socially, in terms of how school is structured, the social dynamics, how representative or not so representative it is, and just the merge of cultures. I mean, this is a program that brings people from all over the world, if I could say.
Right.
At least there's a wide representation in terms of geography,
Yeah.
But still, it took a lot in terms of, I mean, when I was in Pretoria, this was close enough to home. I've got support, my cousins, this family, there's community around, right? But in this new space, you're first building community. And while you're building community, you're supposed to still show up. You're navigating a system you haven't been part of. And perhaps maybe that is why I had considered doing a master's at UP, because it was a system I was familiar with, right? I already had 2 degrees from it, and I kind of knew what are the expectations. So it was really, I think it was a really big challenge to move out of that and go into a space where, so I don't know, and there's a GPA. There was no GPA at Tux. There's just a different system and style in how people teach and so forth, right?
Yeah.
I think that, and I don't want to single out anything in particular, because for me, it was just the whole schooling experience that was different in how I'd experienced schooling before. And the program that I was part of also had a practical knowledge immersion part of it, where they're intentionally making sure that you are visiting the places of work that they imagine you would like to work in.
Oh, really? As part of the curriculum?
Yeah, as part of the curriculum. Like, you'll have, I mean, I first went to the United Nations as part of the knowledge immersion trip. There was a knowledge immersion trip before I actually started being an intern.
Interesting.
So even when I joined, and you go to a couple of them, Bank of America, you go to Washington, D.C., where there's a couple of them, UNAIDS and USAIDs. USAID is also there. So there's a couple of kind of visitation. And even on the weekly, what they do is they'll have either somebody who's an alumni of the program, or somebody who they've just taken a keen interest in and think that they would like to share what their corporate journey is like and what they're doing and so forth. So there was a practical aspect of it in that sense, right?
Okay.
Where you're kind of getting an exposure of, this is what work would look like or could look like for you.
I'm sure you had people in your class that had already started working, right?
Yes, we had quite a lot of them, actually.
Yeah.
They had finished their undergraduate, had gone out to work, and then had come back to do this. I mean, a lot of them.
Okay.
Quite a bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's that one thing you think helped you overcome?
I think I quite strongly believe in, if I start something, I need to make sure I see it through.
Yeah.
Regardless of how difficult it is.
Yeah.
And I think that's the one thing that kept me.
Yeah.
I said I was going to come here and do this, and I need to see
better
it
finish
through
it.
for my own sake. Because I think there's something to be said around how you're learning consistency and discipline in doing something even when it's uncomfortable, or even if it's not the most pleasant thing at the time, but you are still showing up because you've committed and you said you were going to do it.
Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. If there's one lesson that I've also learned from a mentor of mine, is just that, right? Yeah. You've committed, you set out a goal in being where you are right now.
Yeah.
You're going to see it through. It doesn't matter what distractions come, what challenges come your way. You're going to see it through, right?
Definitely.
And that has so many benefits to it. Because imagine you had decided, oh, this place is too uncomfortable for me. I'm not gelling with all of these different people, and the culture and everything is just foreign. Yeah. Let me just go back home, right? I mean, can you even just envision what your life would be? Like, how different it would be?
I can't, because I don't think I toyed enough with that idea enough to even consider it as something that I would really act on and see to completion, right?
I hear you.
So I don't think I had enough room to toy around with that idea.
Yeah. You said earlier when you were speaking about mentorship that, you know, the people that you met even when you were on your exchange program, you still have close relationships with now, right? And there's so much value, I believe, in maintaining and building really strong relationships with people. I find that sometimes is just the core of your career. I mean, you said
succeeding or failing.
Yeah. You know, you said that the one connection you have ends up being the connection to many other people that you might not have had exposure to, but because you know that one person and you've made a conscious kind of decision to ensure that you're maintaining that relationship, that's kind of catapulted everything else in your career.
Yes, 100%, bohlale. I must acknowledge that if there's one thing that I started learning from the American culture while I was in grad school, was the significance of mentorship. And really, not just in building, but also nurturing.
Yeah.
Because obviously there's a building stage, and then there's over time where we are watering.
You nurture, yes.
We're watering, right?
Yeah.
And I had to quickly enough learn that this is important and I need to hone down on it, right?
Yes.
I mean, to this day, I still have someone who sends me a message, oh, I saw an advert of this post. Please apply.
Yeah.
I think it'd be perfect for it.
Yes. 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 Opportunities.
I saw something and I know that you would be a great fit for it, right?
Yeah.
So I really had to very early on understand that networks are important and I need to nurture them. And I think it's even worse I don't know if worse is the right word, but I think you're probably in a more disadvantaged position if you're not inheriting any networks. When you don't really come from a family or from a
that
place
has networks.
where there's networks in what you are doing,
yes.
every network is built
yes.
by yourself, by your hands.
Yes.
I mean, almost 95% of the networks I've had, I have not even inherited a single one.
Yeah.
I've had to build.
Yeah.
The 5% that I have inherited are from my primary networks. So I've inherited secondary networks from my primary
From your
ones,
primary ones.
right?
Yeah.
So I've had to really navigate that. And this is, I haven't found an ABCD kind of manual on how to do it. I'm still learning and growing on that, right? Or in that. But it's really been something that I have had to quickly grasp into,
Yeah.
but also understand that it's important. And as you say, I mean, the Canadian families who hosted me, I still get to, when they're in New York, they'll be like, hey, we're coming through, can we? And then I'll meet up with them, or, everybody, even at Tuks, the professors that really have, I mean, there's 3, if I recall correctly, 4 professors who have really taken me under their wing. And from honest, they've really been literally giving the guidance that I needed, even afterwards. Just last week, I was having a conversation with one of them about what could the prospects of this PhD that I'm being asked about could look like. Because as I said, I mean, in the vein of being reminded whether or not I am registered, which I'm not.
Soon to be. Well,
I'm currently not. We don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's really helped for me to be able to bounce off my ideas sometimes and to really be able to be told that not now.
It's very valuable.
Perhaps you need to stay a little longer and consider working on this.
Yeah, get that. Lastly, I think before we wrap up, I love these conversations. There's just so much to actually dive into. And maybe there'll be another opportunity another time if you are here.
It's the shade if I'm here.
For us to have this conversation. But, I'm very intrigued, having worked in New York, having had the exposure to the organizations that you have worked for there. I like asking my guests if there's one thing in the workplace that they would change, what would that be and why, right? So very interested in your response to that, particularly because you haven't had the corporate exposure and experience within the SA landscape, but keen to understand from your exposure and experience what that would be, if there's something you'd change.
One thing? Maybe 10. I'm kidding. Okay. I'm kidding. 10 is too much.
Biggest thing.
A couple of things. First, I think I'd appreciate if staff members could have an appreciation for humanity. I think this is quite personal to me because I've seen how people are treated not so well sometimes, not so kindly, perhaps because they come from a particular country that nobody considers seriously, really, or nobody considers as well off. So consequently, they don't value your inputs or experiences, right? So I really think it would be important for us to have a different perception around how do we see people and how do we address biases and help people overcome the inherent biases that they have. Because whether we are aware or unaware, we all have biases to some degree, right? Just differing in terms of the spectrum of the biases.
Yeah.
So I think I'd really be interested in seeing how we work through that. But also, second to that, how we are able to address a lot of the challenges around, for example, gender pay gaps, because we still
That's a big one.
Yeah, we still continue to see very vast pay gaps between men and women of the same credentials, of the same experience, and so forth. And we always, more recently, there's a growing agenda around diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how workspaces should be more diverse and equitable for all. for all staff members, right? Regardless of sex and gender. And in that vein, even though we are seeing a lot of conversation happening in the practical sense of how are these things implemented, there still is a gap. And I say this because, I mean, I think we should think of this not necessarily in the context of international organizations. Yes, there's that, but also there's the private sector. There's civil society organizations. There's quite a range of stakeholders. So whatever space you are in, and not just in my space, because we at least get to experience a diverse group of workspaces in terms of the advisory work we do, right? So is there a lactation room for nursing mothers? I would change that, because we have a lot of people, women who don't have access to that. They don't have access to lactation rooms. But somehow in the office, there happens to be a couple of vacant rooms, which nobody knows what they are for. They're just vacant.
Yeah.
And yet we do have the financial means. So I'm saying let's repurpose those.
Yes.
Because we can be addressing. And I think in that vein, as we speak about the gender equality agenda, there's a lot of work that we all can be contributing to, because I always hear, especially in the private sector, where companies are saying, our business is money. This is our business. We're an accounting firm. We're a law firm. But you do corporate social responsibility. And it is in that where you could become a contributor as an ally to many of the issues that we continue to experience. I mean, you hear a lot of organizations and companies, they're struggling with, a lot of their staff are struggling with gender-based violence. Is there a lot of women or people are struggling with stereotypes in the workplace, discrimination in the workplace. So I think there's a lot to be said about how we could be improving our inclusion agenda. As a manager, as a staff member, we are all allies to the issue, and there's something that we can all do. And we can all contribute to that. I mean, you perhaps are wondering, what can I do about women who are getting paid less than men? You're probably a manager who's part of negotiating remuneration packages.
Yep. Or you are there in those conversations.
You are there in your conversations. You are there in the budgeting. You can see evidently what is happening. That is an opportunity for you to be able to raise your voice and say, could we perhaps correct this? Could we perhaps reconsider how these things are structured, right? So, I mean, I can talk to really a range of issues around how budgets are being set up, how the spaces themselves are being inclusive. There's been a growing model that we've been observing around, for example, how workspaces are creating quote-unquote playrooms or host areas for parents with children. Can I, if I don't have help on a particular day, I need to stay at the office 30 minutes later, but I also need to pick up my child. Where do I take my child? I'm not going to take my child to a home without a guardian or supervision, right? But maybe there's a play area in the office where the child could be for 30 minutes while I finish up the last email, whatever I needed to do before I head out. So inclusion looks so different. There's so many faces to it, and we need to consider it as holistically as possible.
A lot has been said, and I think there's so much resonance with the South African context as well. I think in everything that you've said, I mean, we could say exactly the same thing here. So it is, like you're saying, I think in private sector, there's so much room, right? And I love your question around, you could be sitting there asking yourself, where do I come into this? But you're there in the meeting, you know? And I think so often when we are, as leaders and as managers, we're there in the meeting, we hear things happening, but as long as it doesn't impact us, there's nothing then that you need to say, right? And it's about changing that narrative. It's about being in the boardroom, being in the spaces where these decisions are made, but being the person to say, can I ask a quick, why is it that I'm at the same level as this person here? Why am I paid 30% more than her? I just want to understand. Right? And it boils down to that core value of yours around humanity, right? Around seeing people as people. And not running this race selfishly with blinkers on, and it's just about me, what I can gain, how much I can gain, the house that I can buy off the back of that, the family vacations I can go on. How about every single person that is also in the same environment as you? When you see something is wrong or incorrect, don't just think you, right? So I love that. I love that. And I think so many other amazing nuggets that you've dropped in just this last question as well. And so appreciative of your viewpoint, the lens from which you come from. There's so much I want to unpack within your journey. So much I haven't asked, but I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for the time that we've had together to just dig into you and your experience. And I hope that, those of you that are out there that think my background is not conducive to me. I'd never be able to work internationally. I'd never be able to work in these kinds of spaces. Learn from this conversation. Learn about the importance of creating relationships, building networks. Learn about the importance of furthering your education, right? Seeing more for yourself, not just trying to get the bare minimum. Learn about resilience. Learn about grit, right? There's so much that's been packaged in just this conversation today, Mahlatse, and I really hope that there's so much that you guys have learned from it today. And if there's any questions you have, I can redirect it to you. You can comment. You can comment in the video below. But before we leave, Mahlatse, just I like asking this of all my guests. Just a song that you feel represents you and your corporate journey thus far. In closing.
Thus far. I like that you stopped at thus far. Because I don't want to be quoted. I'm kidding. I think Jay-Z's Empire State of Mind featuring Alicia Keys.
Tell me.
Really, New York for me has been a concrete jungle.
Yes.
But really the place where my dreams have been made and realized.
Oh, I love it.
I always thought, to be honest with you, when I chose the journey or the career I did, and I'd wanted to be in diplomacy, yes, right? But I thought that I would end up at DOCO and then be a national diplomat on mission and so forth. And then maybe the UN could happen maybe much later in my 30s, 40s. I thought maybe early 40s.
Yeah.
But it happened to be the place I started at.
Yeah.
So really it's been...
Starting at the UN.
It's been the place.
I mean...
It's really been... New York has really been the place where my journey has really started, but also has been catapulted in a very significant way.
Amazing.
So yeah, Jay-Z featuring Alicia Keys.
There we go. I love it.
Jungle.
Concrete jungle.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Wishing you absolutely everything of the best in your journey. PhD, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know. We'll see.
Thank you so much. I've learned so much from the conversation, learned so much from you, and I know that it's been absolutely valuable for our listeners today. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure.